The patient had a wide intumescent cataract with an ocular history of vitrectomy with silicone oil, followed by silicone oil removal and multiple injections with an anti-VEGF agents to treat diabetic retinopathy with macular edema. LensX femtosecond laser was used with the idea to facilitate the anterior capsulotomy and prevent anterior capsular tears, as well for lens fragmentation, as some of the literature encouraged to do. The anterior capsule was stained with trypan blue and the anterior chamber was filled with viscoat, displaying an incomplete capsulotomy in 2 areas. The capsulorhexis was completed manually, and as I removed the Utrata forceps from the anterior chamber, I burped out some of the visco to decrease the resistance of the hydrodissection wave. A very gentle, intermittent hydrodissection was performed, followed by lens reposition, tapping down the lens with the tip of the cannula after each injection of VSS in different quadrants. But a sudden and abrupt extrusion of viscoelastic followed by flattening of the anterior chamber was noticed. I checked the tone of the eye, that it was hard rock. The patient was pain-free, so the worst complication was likely to rule out. A caliper was used to mark a position 3.5 mm behind the limbus to confirm a pars plana entrance of the 27GA needle mounted on a TB syringe, and I proceed to perform a vitreous dab. A few minutes later, the AC deepened and the tone of the eye decreased. The hydrodissection was not achieved since the lens did not spin, so a hook and a flip technique was used to separate the lens from the back with the chopper while trying to minimize the pressure against the back and the sonulus. I decided to proceed with the stop and chop technique instead of converting to an extra cap. I decreased the bottle height of the phaco, and while using the phaco needle to shape nuclear material to create the sulcus, the lens tilted, and it made clear that a PCR had occurred. Viscoelastic was injected behind the tilt lens to prevent the lens from dropping into the posterior chamber, and I combined several maneuvers to try to rescue the lens, including a modified chopstick technique, cannula visco levitation, but these were ultimately unsuccessful, as the entire lens dropped into the anterior space of the posterior chamber. Since the patient had a previous vitrectomy, there was no risk for vitreous entrapment, but I was concerned that using the coaxial infusion of the phaco would propel the lens farther posterior. So I proceed to use the 25G vitrector to rescue the lens through a limbar approach with a dry vitrectomy technique at the beginning to prevent the turbulence of the fluid from counteracting my efforts to retrieve the lens. Once that I had control of the lens and it was brought into the anterior chamber, I continued to remove it with the vitrector probe in the INA mode and cortex settings. I opted to use the vitrector as long as I was able to cut out the lens easily while having the phaco probe on standby. The vitrector split the lens into smaller fragments, and after enlarging the main corneal incision and filling the sulcus with Provix solution, and coating the endothelium with viscoat, a 3-piece IOL was successfully inserted in behind the lens fragment, acting at that point as a scalper and barrier to prevent the fragments from falling into the posterior chamber. The Sulcus IOL also provides 2 separate chambers, as well as more stability for the coaxial infusion of the INA probe that are used to remove the last residual fragments. The corneal incisions were closed with an uninterrupted tenonylon suture and stromal hydration. The IOL was well centered and no less fragments fall into the posterior chamber.